A very warm welcome to the show. Now, presidential aspirant of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, says his agenda is built around a well-developed strategy that will revamp Nigeria's ailing economy and transform the polity. To reform the private sector, the administration he is proposing would move to liberalize and deregulate the economy in many sectors, provide efficient infrastructure to reduce production costs, and provide protection to priority enterprises. He will also put in place policies and measures to optimize the growth potential of the real sectors, including agriculture, manufacturing, and MSMEs. The five-point agenda that he is proposing was contained in the policy document that he released from his campaign office, and it details how the administration would, over the first 5 years, invest heavily in the much needed infrastructure, which will result in growth across several sectors. But how does Atiku intend to do this in the midst of the turbulent season in the People's Democratic Party? How will he be able to contain the challenges there before eventually saying if indeed he can woo Nigerians to be able to vote for him? Well, to discuss this further, I have with me a spokesperson of the Atiku Presidential Campaign Council, Bwala, who is also a lawyer. So good having you join me on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Daniel, let's talk about the latest in the PDP and your presidential campaign council, including your presidential candidates. We hear he's out of the country. Some say he's in London, others say he's in Paris at the moment, in France, trying to see how, in one way or the other, at least he can get a chance to meet Governor Nyesom Wike and resolve the teething problem that has been ongoing, which several party leaders say may affect his fortunes if this is not resolved quickly.
Well, thank you for having me. It is the funny part of the question you asked is when you said if you can get a chance to meet Wike, like it is difficult to meet Wike. It is actually not a problem, Atiku meeting Wike. I know that they met some weeks ago in the residence of one of the chieftain of the party and had an understanding of how to further discuss on the differences. After which they set up, well, they had their own interest groups or representatives that also met in Port Harcourt. So as far as I'm concerned, the progress is ongoing and there is no need for them to be outside of the country to meet, because it is not a secret that they met in Nigeria and they will further talk on that. And contrary to also the widespread assertion that he's in the UK, I know for a fact that Atiku Abubakar is not in the UK. Yes, he's in France, but he traveled to France for private meetings, and I don't think meeting with Wike is one of them. As for Wike, Governor Wike, I don't know where he is at the moment, and other people said he's not in the country. But the intriguing thing about what you read from the press is that in one breath they will say they are in France, in another breath they will say they are in London. Probably in the next hours they will say they are in Egypt. So until there is a press statement from either of their respective advisors in that regard, I do not think that going out of the country to meet is a case.
How worried is Atiku Abubakar about Wike's meeting with the APC presidential candidate, Bwala Tinubu?
Well, I don't think Atiku is worried, because Atiku is an established politician who knows that in politics, people have interests. People will find a way of articulating their interests, and politics is noisy. You know, Wike has every right to meet with anybody, but Wike, I'm sure, as a veteran and a politician in the party, will be guided by the basic tenets of anti-party activities. And I don't think Wike will want to jeopardize the image he has built in the party to do anti-party, but he has the right to meet with anybody. The other day, people were talking about individuals that he invited to come and commission projects in his state as meaning anti-party, but you could see over a period of time he has invited people across all aisles. But
not within this season. I mean, when we enter into the campaign season, you and I know that, I mean, no one would want to do that if he's not trying to push a point.
Well, Again, like I said, politics is game, and it's game of interest, and it's like a chess. So everybody will want to play it to his advantage. But what I can tell you categorically is that PDP is in better shape to take over the reins of power. And the indices are there. The evidence is there. APC promised Nigerians that they were going to provide security As a matter of fact, President Muhammadu Buhari was in the Chatham House, Royal Institute for International Studies, where he promised the world on the 26th of, I think, February 2015, when he accused PDP of not spending on security. And he said that if voted into power, the world will have no need to worry about Nigeria. 7 years down the line, the world is more worried about Nigeria than they were worried in 2015. They promised to fight corruption as well. You have seen the reports on corruption and corrupt practices. As a matter of fact, in the coming days when we begin to unfold, we will tell you more on almost every social investment intervention of this government.
I mean, I'm actually coming to those issues, but I wanted you to actually tell me more about this feud in the PDP. How big is the Wike factor in the PDP that it has even led to, I mean, people like Sule Lamido firing the first salvo that, look, Atiku should just go ahead and just ignore Wike because, I mean, he can't just continue to hold his campaign, the formation of his campaign council to ransom. And of course, we haven't seen a DG being appointed. How big a factor is Wike in the PDP?
Wike is important to the party. Wike is PDP through and through. And Wike has been able to prove through the various projects he has executed in his state that he's a true representative of the spirit of PDP, that they can achieve things. And I think every member of the party is excited about the prospect of Wike being a part of what we're doing. He is a part of what we're doing. There is no evidence to suggest he's not. But if you talk about...
Even when he's punishing some of his associates for visiting Atiku Abubakar.
Yes, again, like I told you, you know, it's politics. So if you have a certain degree of influence and you feel like the influence is reducing, you find a way of reacting. And the thing I want to clarify about the quote-unquote feud that people talk about when they talk about PDP is that they tend to think that politics is like religion, where you run the apostolic ministry. Once somebody says, thus says the Lord, you don't have any opinion on the matter, you just follow. No. You find that even in religion now, when you say, thus saith the Lord, people go like the Berean Christians to study whether what you said is true. How much more in politics where it is a congregation of various shades of ideas, opinions, and interests. And so, and this is election period. He ran for the primaries. He didn't succeed in getting the ticket. And now we are moving. So he will want to know what stake he has in the process going forward. But everything is fine in the sense that, let me make this bold statement. PDP is an institution that has proven to be more organized than any other political party in Nigeria as of today. Historically, you can fact check how they will put a date for convention or primaries, they will stick to it. The recently conducted presidential primary was the most organized as compared to APC. And I can say that because I was a member of the convention planning in APC. Some of the steps while I was in APC, we had to be face to face with the provision of the electoral act or deadline before we could do something. But in contrast, PDP have had everything sailed through. Wike was heard on that day to have said that whatever is the outcome, he was going to abide by that. So the outcome did not favor him, and he has maintained the position that he is a PDP person, he's not leaving PDP, and that, I think, is a technical knockout to the opposition, who think that activities around him will suggest to them.
Well, if he's insisting that the national chairman of PDP should be ousted, I mean, Yochi Ayu, isn't that a sign that all is not well and it may affect your fortunes before we just come to your campaign
I do not think it will affect the fortune. First of all, I do not think naturally that a political party, few months to the election, will want to make certain structural changes that will alter its chances and success. You know, the decision around somebody leaving and somebody coming is not just a statement. It doesn't come like a statement. You take a certain step, people will want to go to court to challenge it. So people want to do. So there are a lot that is it. But what I know for a fact is that they have agreed, the party has agreed that after the election, when Atiku Abubakar becomes the president, naturally...
If he becomes.
No, when? Like, that's why I'm here to give you indices.
Because
okay, let me tell you
in the midst
this.
of the formidable challenges that he has, I mean, just conclude your statement, actually.
Good. Why I said when and not if is because the only other party that ordinarily you could say pose a threat to PDP is APC. But let me tell you, 20 states in Nigeria of APC, they are parallel executives. The vice presidential candidate of APC right now is under intense pressure from the three major geopolitical zones of the north, northeast, northwest, and north central. Various groups have said he has to come down or else they are not going to be part of this project. The presidential candidates or aspirants that contested alongside Asiwaju in their primaries, they are given what we call a sit-down-look approach to everything, because most of them had problem in their respective states and they are not happy.
Yeah,
that
but
just
when you
because
say
I
20
challenge
states,
you,
I will tell you that it's not on record because we haven't seen those states chairmen.
So let me give you the record.
That was before the inauguration of the state executive.
No,
the state executive were eventually inaugurated and we haven't heard that happening.
So you can Google that. The national chairman of APC said by himself, I don't think there can be any record greater than him. In law, we call that conclusive proof. By himself said that unless the party resolves the problem they have around the 20 states where we have parallel executive, we may not put a challenge. I'm quoting him. Okay. And it's verifiable.
Well, we'll move on to the issues that we have at hand today. Atiku is proposing a 5-point agenda in the build-up to the campaign season, which begins next month. He has said that this is preliminary. He released that before now to say that, look, if given the opportunity, before I release my comprehensive campaign blueprint, these are the 5 areas I'm looking at. He's seeking to build Nigeria's GDP beyond $500 billion US, as he says it was in 2015 before the APC took over. Now, tell us more about the controversy that has to do with his statement on the education sector, which he made during the MBA conference, which seemed contradictory, and it looks like he's trying to retrace his steps. Is Atiku preparing to privatize the educational system in Nigeria, or he wants to shift it to the states, the way he quoted the regional system, or what exactly was he aiming at?
First of all, he was quoted out of context, and I can tell you that because I will quote what he said. He narrates a story around a conversation he had with someone where the person was saying he's challenging his policy, proposal. And then he now referred the person to the regional government when we had schools during the time of the regional government, wholly owned by the regional government, and they were effective. Then he now said in the same conversation that, have you not considered private universities? You see that they are efficient. And what makes you think like we cannot do it? So there are 2 things. One, reference to the regional government, which in this case you can say state. The other one, he talks about the private. Now, if you link that one to his policy document, you will see that his emphasis is to prioritize education, where, 1, we intend to lead by providing not just a vision but enabling environment for the kind of education in Nigeria that will turn Nigeria into a knowledge-based economy. A knowledge-based economy is an economy that is anchored on ideas and entrepreneurship. And it has been discovered that more minds have been discovered from above the neck than beneath the feet. Why? In those days, the richest men in the world were people who had oil wealth. Now, the richest men in the world are people with ideas. Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, you can call them. If you call 5 private entities in America who run LinkedIn, Google, Facebook, and the rest, you can see how much they contribute to the economy of that country. So with respect to education, this is his perspective, that education in Nigeria will be more effective and efficient if the environment is created for private participation. Now, private participation in educational sector does not mean all of government schools are going to be turned to private, because even in America, you don't have all of the schools turned into private. Schools are funded in America in 3 ways. Number 1, public schools are funded, 1, by either the state or the local government, or if they are doing research, they get grants. Private schools are funded by endowment, 1, and they are also funded by certain funds that they get from entities as well as tuition. Now, what we are seeking is to strike a balance between the two, where if we create the environment for people to invest in education in Nigeria, then you can have the blossomness of private universities, private secondary schools.
Sorry to interrupt. Don't we already have that? Because that's the reason why Atiku Abubakar himself owns a private university. We have several individuals owning private universities at the country. What is so exceptional about such a policy proposal in the midst of what we have? So
good question. The answer is we have more government schools than we have private schools, true or not. 2, The private schools in Nigeria are running against the wind. So their direction is like eagle flying against the wind. The enabling environment is not given to them. They are not thriving. Can you look at the private universities in Nigeria and see how effective they are? You can imagine if government comes up with a policy that encourage more participation, where, let's say, a private university in Nigeria is linked up to Harvard or to Yale or to Cambridge, where you can begin a course in Nigeria and finish it in Harvard University. Think of how much that will impact on us. In 2008, it was, I think a research was done, a finding in 2008 that in the United Kingdom, from foreign students alone, they make on an average of £4 billion sterling. In Nigeria today, you see the movement of people away from Nigeria abroad to spend still on private. Now, you can imagine taking the money out of the economy if we have those private universities in Nigeria. That means the money is going to be in the economy. You cannot stop people from still going if they have the means to go anyway. So why don't you create the environment that will become more attractive to them? So we can then introduce in universities as institutions of higher learning problem-solving curriculum. Because as of today, most of the courses that are being taught in the university are courses you read it for the pride of it. You follow the British type module or curriculum where you read it, but you may never need it in your life. But in America, you identify an area and you, just like research, you come up with an idea of what you want to do. You find a professor who is going to be your supervisor along that line. You build those ideas. If we create an environment where people bring these ideas into our schools right from the beginning, right up. In essence, in a nutshell, with education, he is saying, we are going to prioritize education. And why is this emphasis at this moment? Because look at APC-led government and look at how long the people have stayed away from strike.
Yeah,
the only thing that is longer.
The administration, we had ASU going on strike, and I was surprised that Atiku ran away from the issue of ASU. He didn't address it as to what will be different, because some will accuse him of being theoretical when the practical issues are there and he's not pointing at them.
So good. The only thing that is longer than the ASU strike is the necktie of the vice presidential candidate that appeared in MBA program. But in coming down to the
APC vice presidential candidate, you mean
APC. The only thing that I can say with respect to what you are saying about, you say he shied away from answering.
Yes, I mean the issue of ASU. Everybody wants to know if he becomes president, what is going to do differently from previous PDP administration and the current APC administration.
The answer is simple. What APC is not doing that he will do is to create an engagement where the government will be frank with the labor unions, or in this case, the educational union. So this government is not doing that. That is why you can find the spokesman of this government going on air to say that the Nigerian students should go and beg them, and kneel down and beg them. Then you find the Minister of Education in this government who is saying the Nigerians should take ASU to court, meaning that the government is looking for an excuse. If any student takes ASU to court, the government will say that is the reason why we have not been able to put an end to the problem. What Atiku will do is, because there will always be trade dispute, if they come to the table with demands that the government is unable to meet, you will come to them with an open hand. Let them have an understanding of what you're doing. But more than that, your actions and inactions and your execution of project must be such that it is transparent enough. ASU can see with their eyes how this government is wasting money. I give you an example. The Ministry of Humanitarian recently released a report where they said that it was already agreed that $1 billion on an average will be spent every year in certain trainings, such as the repairing of phones. Isn't that a misplaced priority? Because there is no data to show how many people are trained, how much was invested.
Yeah, but the government was disputing those figures, saying that it looks like the opposition tried to push in certain figures into that.
Okay, so what about this one that 52 billion? What about this one that 52 billion was earmarked for intervention, which the Minister of State for Labor is executing to give Nigerians employment, any kind of employment where they will be paid. The National Assembly asked for evidence of execution.
The special ad hoc program.
They asked for evidence of spending. He said we couldn't disclose the identity of the people because their names, and their phone numbers and BVN are attached, and it will amount to breach. This is how all the social investment in this government ending up in private pocket. So what Atiku is proposing is, with respect to ASU, to be frank, you know, in life, negotiation calls a successful negotiation when it is a win-win situation. You must come and be frank with them. And these ASU are the people that train almost everybody in our economy today. If you are here because you went through university, I'm here because I went through university.
Except the children of the rich who have been trained in UK, US, and all of that, and including that of your principal.
I studied in the UK. I did my master's. But when I went for my master's, I realized that this same education in Nigeria that we call poor education, when Nigerians go abroad, they come out with first class. So the will and the spirit is there with Nigeria. Bad leadership is the reason we are where we are today. Let me tell you, we had the capacity during Obasanjo. He introduced a policy, and that is the government of Obasanjo and Atiku. They introduced a policy in the university then where if your CGPA is 4.0, you are entitled to get certain form of scholarship up to 300,000 at a time. Can you tell me one scholarship proposal that this government has done in schools? Apart from the closed schools because of strike, even the schools that are not on strike, like secondary school and the rest, have had to close in certain places because of insecurity.
Okay, we have to move on to the next thing now. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar is saying that Nigeria has continued to operate a faulty, complex federal structure with high degree of centralization at the center. So he's saying that he's going to ensure that the federal government appropriates only certain responsibilities that are very necessary, while he would plan to restructure the system in such a way that the states have more powers. Right. Isn't he going to be at loggerheads with some of the overlords that we've seen over time, saying that the federal government is okay the way it is, or those who are afraid of restructuring?
That's the burden of leadership. The burden of leadership is accepting responsibility. The burden of leadership is doing what is not popular, but for the overall good of the Nigerian people. I was privileged to be a member, one of the consultants in the 9th Assembly for the review of the 1999 Constitution. We have had several months of deliberation along the line. I have, in fact, at some point, the whole thing started from my office, because then I served the Deputy Senate President on legal and constitutional matters. So most of the proposals started there. You could see from the submission of memoranda of Nigerians that if you're going to put on percentage basis, about 80% of Nigerians are all agreeable to restructuring, including parts of the country that you think they are not. Like, for example, creation of state police. People are interested. Why is the government not taking the position? This government was afraid. It's afraid, so to speak. And I won't say it's because Buhari is weak. It's because he put square holes, square pegs in round holes. They have not been able to advise him. It's just like subsidy. He had the intention to remove the subsidy. They told him, don't do that. And today there is a report that even after Nigeria made a lot of gain from the sale of oil because of increase of the price due to fight between Russia and Ukraine, Aramco was able to put back $90 billion or thereabout to the economy. Some they put in stakes in the US. Nigeria is still paying subsidy and loans. The same APC-led government, you remember the president of the Senate once visited the president of Nigeria. He came out and I was addressing the press. He said that there is a finding by the Congress, the parliament, that about 40 or 60% of the liters of fuel that they say we consume actually go out of the country. So in other words, the government is subsidizing the petrol, not to Nigerians, but to interest few. Now, in contrast, Atiku Abubakar believes that a federally funded federation should be a federation that concerns itself more on defense, foreign policy, minting, certain things that protects the territorial integrity of the country, but devolve certain aspects of the government of the federation to the states. And there are, for example, state creation, creation of state police. The federal government can have federal police, can have the armed forces, can have all of the critical security apparatus that keep the territorial integrity of the country. But nothing stops the state from having a multi-layer policing system, so we can ensure that the Constitution of Nigeria is implemented to the root.
Okay, I will just ask you to hold on. Let's go on a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue this conversation and conclude because this same Atiku Abubakar was in the APC in 2015 when the APC sold this sort of promises to Nigerians, only for us not to see most of these things taking place. And the Bwala administration is almost coasting home now. You're still watching the Arise interview. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll conclude this conversation. Back to the Arise interview. I'm Sono Sambo, and of course we still have in the studio here a spokesperson of the Atiku Presidential Campaign Council, Daniel Bwala, who is also a lawyer. And Daniel, as we try to coast home very quickly, Atiku Abubakar and Bola Tinubu were friends. They helped form the APC to drive this restructuring idea. Tinubu has been strong on state police and, you know, restructuring of the federation. But we all didn't see all of this happening in the APC. I don't know, is that the reason why Atiku left? And don't you think that the North, there's always the fear that the North is opposed to restructuring? How will Atiku from the North be able to do this, considering the thinking that the northern leaders are feudal lords who prefer the current system the way it is?
Before the independence of Nigeria, the application of restructuring was more effective in the North than in any part of the country. In fact, that was what attracted the British government into doing more business with the northern Nigeria, because of the system of policing they have and leadership. And you can find that out. The problem we've had over the years in Nigeria is that we don't have good leadership that exemplifies clean intention. So even if you want to do something correct but your intention is wrong, your good intention can be misread and miscalculated. The northern Nigeria is not afraid of restructuring. But the way, when the agitation for restructuring started, the way it was conveyed and the definition that it was given was such that it seemed as though the restructuring was a fight against a certain part of the country. That's why you hear people say restructuring has a different meaning to different people. Atiku's proposal for restructuring is devolution of powers that are most needed, most useful, and most relevant to the federating units. An example: if you encourage the creation of state police, that is devolution of power. So you can take government and law and order to the last person in the local government. So you can give the ownership of the patriotism of the country to the people at the root. Who does not want creation of state police? You remember, in fact, Borno State even had to force their way into creating what they call civilian JTF to deal with the situation. The North is not opposed to restructuring. The other part of restructuring is, let's say in the area of education. Rather than government acquiring every institution in the name of federal government, bragging about it and not delivering, you can give states the opportunity. In the US, some schools are owned by the states. Even in project in Nigeria, you remember, if government is executing a project in a state, there are times they execute directly, there are times they ask the state execute it and we refund. In other words, whatever it takes to make the federating unit function optimally is not about present. Then the governors in the past who were pushing for the restructuring were also not well intended in their communication. That's what creates this problem, because the little power you have, you refuse to devolve it at your level, and you're asking for more. So when some people say restructuring, but what is in their mind is resource control. Okay. I'll give you an example.
Very quickly.
Good. There is a law that was signed, 121 sub 3, by the president, which devolved power to the judiciary and the legislature. The governors fought and fought. They went right to the Supreme Court. But they are agreeable on the restructuring that will give them access to funds.
Okay.
Security vote in Nigeria, in some places, match the wage bill of that state. No accountability on security. So the masses
so they promote restructuring at the federal level, but at the state level, they don't want it.
Thank you. Okay. They are not ready to concede power to the local government.
All right. Very quickly, as we try to round off this conversation, where will Atiku get all these monies that he will use to run his proposed federal government? Right. Because, I mean, he's saying that he's going to break government monopoly in all infrastructures, refineries, rail transportation, and power transmission. There's that innate fear that Atiku will sell some of these national assets to his friends.
So let me tell you where we are today. Nigeria's next president is to spend the first 3 years repaying 27.7 trillion debt. When you probe this, how these loans were collected, then it's another gate altogether. We're going to have multiple gates when we come.
So Atiku intends to probe the outgoing government?
No, I'm just giving an example to tell you that as we come into government, we are going to come with 20.
If you come into government.
No, we are. When? I just gave you the indices. When we come, we are going to be confronted with 27.7 trillion naira debt that we're going to pay. Now, let me tell you how money is generated by government. And you can see that in 1999, as soon as democracy returned, Obasanjo was all over the map, seeking two things. One, debt cancellation, and two, direct foreign investment. For the period he has been away, according to Gani Faweyimi, who wrote a book, Obasanjo, the Absentee President, he came up with a finding that Obasanjo traveled about 93 times in the first 3 years. And in these first 3 years, the 93 times, he was out of Nigeria for 240 days. If you divide that into 30 days, for 8 months, Obasanjo was outside the country. Who was governing Nigeria? It was Atiku. Now, so Atiku governed with executive
but never as acting president.
So here is the problem. In 2019, Obasanjo said to the world that he didn't think it was necessary to designate him acting president because he felt that once the president is out of the country, the vice president takes on the full reign with the full powers. So what actually happened was that Obasanjo's time, he didn't think it was necessary to send the letter, but it did not stop Atiku from performing the duties of the executive. That's why Atiku led an innovation that brought about the opening of our economy in the area of telecom, where the value chain created jobs that there is no sector of the economy today, including agriculture, that has matched that.
So very quickly, where will Atiku get monies from? Because we have a revenue problem in the country.
I was laying the foundation that Obasanjo, when he went around the world, people could trust the honesty with the administration. Here you find a retired military general who is going to the world, first admitting the military failed. But we want support. Atiku was there managing affairs. So what the first thing in direct foreign investment, and or you get loan or grant, whatever the nomenclature, the first thing is confidence and trust. Can they trust you? Now, when Atiku's policy document is quite open to anybody who wants to invest in Nigeria to know that his intention is to create a climate.
So we should not be afraid that he'll be selling national assets to his friends, because that's being used against him over and over.
That argument is so base. Do you know why I say it's so base? Because
remember the Pentascope deal?
Pardon?
The Pentascope deal, which Malam El-Rufai in charge of BPE then, and of course Atiku Abubakar, who was heading privatization and all of that.
So is Malam El-Rufai, let me ask you, Malam El-Rufai, where is he and which political party does he belong to?
Well, he is in the APC, but they were both in the PDP.
So if you want to blame, and who is the key secret of the success of Asiwaju? El-Rufai? That's why the Northwest say they are not voting him, because the man who led the move that got him to get the flag, the ticket, he's no longer with him. Now, investment.
We haven't heard that openly.
Once your document is clear, intentions are well thought out, investors will come. Atiku has more relationship with private sector than with the public sector. And no economy on earth today that is running a full public sector economy that is successful. Okay. None, not a single one.
Daniel Bwala is the spokesperson of the Atiku Presidential Campaign Council. We just had to bring you here to help us understand these issues ahead of the main campaigns next month. And I can tell you that when the campaigns begin, of course, you'll definitely be on the hot seat, because there are some things we can't say now because it's not yet.
We too, there are some stats that we have against this government that when that time comes, everybody will be shocked.
Well, we must thank you so much. I will hope to have you some other time when the campaign season fully kicks off.